Good evening. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. If you were looking at the political map of India over the last 96 hours, you weren't watching normal governance. You were watching a seismic collision between a digital age youth protest and the traditional machinery of the Indian state. Consider the sheer velocity, viewers, of what has just gone down. Just a few days ago, on Friday, the 25th of July, the capital was on edge. By 2:30 p.m., Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan was out. He was forced to step down under the relentless heat of the Cockroach Janata Party's street and social media mobilization. By 5 p.m., high-stakes table meeting with JP Nadda and Dr. Jitendra Singh conceded to every core demand of the Cockroach Janata Party. By 5:30 p.m., Saurav Das called off the Jantar Mantar sit-in, and by 9 p.m., celebration videos of hotels came out. Viral dance clips were rolling on social media, and eventually Prahlad Joshi was also sworn in to pick up the burning portfolio. It was all fast, furious and seemingly wrapped up, but that's not quite it. Because what followed was an extraordinary legal and political tug of war across multiple state lines. While Delhi police spent the weekend tracking down rioters and flashing videos of arsonists, the Supreme Court stepped in. What did it do first? It shielded minors and first-time student protesters. But it also drew a very hard, unyielding line against history sheeters and criminal elements who hijacked the chaos in Delhi. Down in Bihar and West Bengal, state governments scrambled to wipe the slates clean, dropping mass FIRs against protesters. But in Assam, legal battles flared, and right as we crossed into this week, the plot twisted yet again. The CJP, fresh off their victory lap, turned right back around to oppose the Supreme Court's strict stance on history sheeters, tossing out fresh threats of a renewed agitation. Is the establishment losing control of the narrative to a generation that is protesting with memes, that is dancing after resignations and negotiations, and which speaks face to face with the ruling party leadership? Or are we witnessing the dangerous collapse of institutional deterrence on our streets? Tonight, we break down the timeline, the politics and the fallout, and I take this conversation forward with our guests just then. As I mentioned, viewers, at 2:30 p.m. on 25th July, Dharmendra Pradhan had resigned. By 5 o'clock, this meeting took place. There was a joint press conference where the centre agreed to all demands of the CJP. At 5:30, Saurav Das, chief spokesperson of the Cockroach Janata Party, announces the end of the protests and asks all protesters to go back home. Around 9 p.m. the same night, a party begins at a Delhi hotel, which is, of course, as many people are saying, that it's the right of the youth to party and celebrate however they want. It doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter. But yes, these videos have circulated online and they have attracted some strong comments about the CJP as well. At 9:45, we get news that Prahlad Joshi has been appointed as the new education minister. At 10:30 p.m., the cops have managed to clear out the protest site at Jantar Mantar. Next day, 11 a.m., Delhi police has released videos of arsonists and lumpers who were at large in this protest. 3:15 p.m., petitions are filed on the 26th in the Supreme Court that seeks action on the rioters, on those who indulged in violence. At 6 p.m. on the same day, Bihar government decides to drop all FIRs against the protesters, meeting one of the core demands of the CJP. Next day at 9 o'clock, Delhi police identifies 250 plus history sheeters in the July 20th violence, all whom were found basis on CCTV evidence and facial recognition systems that were deployed by the Delhi police at the protest site. 5 o'clock on the same day, Kapil Sibal holds a press conference with the CJP where he announces that a legal aid cell will be created now to help those who are quote unquote harassed by the establishment, by the cops in the aftermath of a genuine citizens' protest. At 8:30 p.m. on 27th July, Assam police revokes cases against protesters as well. At 6:20 p.m., Ashutosh Ranka of the CJP writes a letter to JP Nadda seeking the FIR guarantee, as was stated in one of their demands. On 28th July, 11 a.m., the Supreme Court orders the release of protesters below the age of 18. So the matter, which is sub judice because it has reached the Supreme Court has intervened, and it has very fairly ordered that you must release protesters who are below the age of 18 and those who were first timers, that those who don't have any criminal records, they were just there practicing their right to protest in a democracy. Kindly release them. That's what the Supreme Court says. At 4:30 p.m. on the same day, the CJP then opposes the SC verdict, and Saurav Das calls the Supreme Court uninformed in a message that he puts out on social media. The CJP then threatens renewed protests. On 29th July at 9 a.m., West Bengal also joins in as far as Bihar and Assam are concerned, and it withdraws suo moto FIRs against the protesters. So that's where we stand, viewers, at this point in time. But what are the precedents that we're setting, and do we now, just as we've seen focused on reforms in the education system, do we now also need to focus on reforms as far as protests in this country are concerned, and what is allowed and what's not allowed? Joining me on the broadcast, Gopika Babu, Vice President of JNUSU, Sanjay Sai, former ADGP of Karnataka, and Rashmi Samant, who's a human rights activist, joins us on the broadcast. Let me begin this conversation with Gopika Babu. Gopika Babu, I want to understand from you, what is, do you think it's correct of the CJP to now threaten renewed protests?
Absolutely not. I think the assurances with which the movement or the protest at Jantar Mantar was called off was that no punitive measures will be taken up against any student leaders or protesters for taking part in the protest. But you can see that there is a clear vindicative action. JNUSU's former president, Comrade Oishi Ghosh, was given an arrest warrant yesterday, and that too in the office of a national party at AK Gopalan Bhavan yesterday. And this is solely because that she was an active participant in all of the organizing that was going on in Jantar Mantar. She went to different states to mobilize people, and the arrest warrant was in the pretext of a 2021 case. And why that suddenly after the Jantar Mantar protest, the police has realized that yes, there was an FIR and we are going to arrest her. So this is clearly a vindicative action from the side of the Delhi police. It's high-handedness. They are rolling back from the assurances and promises that they had kept. Be it in Assam, Bihar, or West Bengal, people are still behind bars. So if government is not keeping the part of their promise, then I think there is nothing wrong with CJP or the student organizations threatening that we will be coming ahead with more intensified mobilization if they do not keep their word.
Okay, but what was the basis of the FIR from 2021? What was the case?
She was the JNUSU president, and there was a call to Bangla Bhavan. So as a student activist, I can be a testament to the fact that any sort of peaceful demonstration here warrants punitive measures from the side of the Delhi police, which sometimes the charge sheets are filed with non-bailable offences even for the most peaceful of protest demonstrations. So likewise, the direction of the Supreme Court, which says that if there is a protester with prior FIRs, then you can in fact take measures against them. This then leaves no student activist in Delhi, because there are no democratic spaces of dissent left in Delhi where you can openly keep your words, even if you're doing it in the most peaceful manner, in the most democratic manner. What we have seen is that FIRs and charge sheets are filed. I don't think there is any student activist in Delhi without two or three FIRs to their name. So what is happening right now is police recalling back, going back to those FIRs and trying to take punitive measures right now. This solely because they have been tied up to the CJP protest, to the Jantar Mantar protest, and what is going on, the witch hunting going on against Comrade Oishi Ghosh, testament to that fact.
Okay, but luckily for Aishi Ghosh, the Patiala House Court, and correct me if I'm wrong, has stayed the non-bailable warrant that was issued. So no action per se has been taken against her. But let me bring in Rashmi Sawant into the conversation as well. Rashmi, do you feel that there's a pattern of vindictiveness when it comes to any state, and not just the one that is being run by the BJP at the moment, but when it comes to any state government, are there patterns of vindictiveness that one observes? And have students been targeted unfairly under the BJP in the past 10 years?
Well, I think if you're talking about, FIRs being lodged, then we should also fairly talk about the state of Kerala, where it was not just FIRs, but, harsh water guns, cannons were let loose upon few protesting students. We need to talk about how students protesting in Punjab are being persecuted. So I think it's very unfair to, just, one rule for me, another for thee. At the same time, I genuinely do believe that the courts do, bar harsh or coercive police action for regular demonstrators. But this shield explicitly doesn't apply to people who have prior criminal backgrounds. Now, I don't know the specific case of the person just mentioned, but a third of the protesters who caused ruckus during the Jantar Mantar protests have POSCO cases registered against them. They've been accused of rape, 62 of them. Many of them have been accused of stabbing and all kinds of petty crimes, and I do believe that these people need to be pursued because they're a genuine threat against protesters who are regular and they just want justice for students who suffered post the NEET paper leak. So I genuinely do believe that people with prior criminal background need to be persecuted, need to be pursued by the law enforcement, so that other protesters who are there for a genuine cause are saved from these nefarious elements. And at the same time, I'd like to say, see, today's Indian Gen Z, it is a population that is 300 million strong. I'm Gen Z myself. And the real story of Gen Z this year isn't a satire party named after an insult. It's, teenagers becoming world class chess champions, launching rockets into space, outer space, and while the others are arguing about hashtags. So I think we need to put that into perspective as well. You look at 10,000 people marching towards the parliament from Jantar Mantar. You look at another 350,000 students who have registered onto the movement, but that's just a rounding error as opposed to 300 million youth, Gen Z of this country today. I would like to, conclude by saying that there needs to be some sort of action against people with criminal background who have shown up at the protest sites, because for the reason that it makes the space very unsafe for valid protest, for valid dissent, for valid right of expression. So I think that needs to be brought into a sort of consideration.
All right, Sanjay Sahai, bringing you into the conversation. I just have to understand from you, Sanjay Sahai, because the courts have now stepped in and the Supreme Court has said that there will be exclusion of individuals with criminal records. They have not extended any protection or relief to people who are history sheeters, who have a criminal background and they were involved in some of the videos of violence that has come out. But Sanjay Sai, there has been considerable loss of trust as far as a particular generation and particularly students are concerned. And when it comes to these sort of cases where Ms. Gopika Babu is pointing out that it was a 2021 case. For so many years, the cops were sitting on it. Then Aishi Ghosh becomes a face of the Jantar Mantar protest. And then within a few days, you go and take action on something that happened years ago. Sanjay Sahai, I know that the cops are doing a very difficult duty because you do your damned, you don't your damned. It's that sort of a job. But how does one bring in or regain the trust of the public that seems to somewhere be lost as far as police action in India is concerned? And it is now becoming, you can call it a narrative, but in people's mind, they do feel that the cops and the system, the courts are being weaponized against the citizens.
See, what has happened is not only the police. I think the government and police both have lost the plot for quite some time back. And the Gen Z which you're talking about is just that the NEET exam leak brought them to the fore. But this resentment and discontentment with the present ruling mechanism system and the nature of policing, I think has been there for long, which we have witnessed a large number of protests at a very, very lower level. This operated at a very, very high level. So now coming to the agreement which happened on that fateful day, where the government agreed that they will withdraw all the cases. Correct. The cases were not withdrawn. If the government was in the proper frame of mind, they would have told that all the cases which is not related to people who are antisocial elements or history cheaters or previous criminal record. I think that should have been a caveat there. The most interesting part is, of besides whatever you people have been talking about, is that there is a dilly-dallying approach. It is basically the governmental approach which keeps on calculating as to what is advantageous for the government or the ruling dispensation or the ruling party. Now, law and order does not work in that manner. Now, these 1800 antisocial elements or 2800 antisocial elements did not appear on the scene at 11 a.m. on 20th of July. They would be infiltrating beforehand also. And they had the the facial recognition camera operating there for quite some time, and the entry to Jantar Mantar, I think the entry was completely sealed. Now the place does not have a permission. You don't go there for 20 days. And the FR operates only in retrospect. I'll give you another instance of the facial recognition of the Delhi police. That was when the Chandni Chowk bomb blast happened. And this person was able to travel from Faridabad to Chandni Chowk, crisscrossing nearly 50, 60 odd cameras. And he was never recognized. So the problem is that you're not using the technology in the right manner. You're not putting all the efforts. There has been an intelligence failure also. And when you are talking of a protest only, that is half of the story. The whole of, I think, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers radius of Jantar Mantar, the crowds were spilling all over the place. So actually that area, whether we accept it or we don't accept it, was literally the students or the protesters, whosoever had taken control of the whole situation and having pushed that corner, the government responded in the manner it should. And I think they did the right thing so that it did not escalate further. Now, having given that sort of an assurance, and I think there was clarity in the press conference, if they still continue with things which they are doing, I think it is going against them. And the Cockroach Janata Party are well within the rights to come back again. Now you have 2-3 places. Now in Bihar, Assam and other places, you have withdrawn everything. They are saying till 6 p.m., I think on the 25th of July, if I remember the date correctly, all the cases will be withdrawn. There is no analysis of the case. Nothing is there. Then the criminal element. So those criminal elements appeared on the scene. What is the criminality they brought to the table? The same police who has 2,800 people's facial recognition done can also tell us that the number of cases and the people accused in that case, based on the facial recognition, the nature of offense, and what is the investigation conducted so far. What are the total number of people arrested? See, for police, it is not just a protest. For police, it finally translates into number of criminal cases and number of accused and the nature of evidence which is available there. If that is brought to the public domain, I think it will do yeoman service. And with that, other issues have also come up. So one is the pellet guns, and second is the use of AK-47 in Bihar. Now, pellet guns, the government response at different levels has created a smokescreen. Whereas whatever is the information and details available by way of medical reports, video forensics and variety of other ways, it very clearly proves that the pellet guns have been used. See, if it has been used, let the government say it has been used, they are well within their powers to use pellet guns. Now, pellet guns also operates with some level of engagement, using deflector. You cannot use from less than 50 meters and variety of other things. One person who can literally clear the air on all this is the Delhi Police Commissioner. And unfortunately, he has never held a press conference or given a press statement on any of these things. And he has allowed all the political parties to behave in the manner they do, and creating more of a smoke screen or more of a cacophony than the country can digest at this particular point in time.
Yes,
Let's
but
be crystal
Sanjay
clear.
I just want to make one quick point there, and I want to bring in then Gopika Babu as well on that. Gopika Babu, Sanjay Sahai former cop himself, he's raising a pertinent point that there is a lack of perhaps information at this point in time. But I have been following the Delhi police account on social media, where they are coming and countering several things that are being said on social media platforms, and they're saying that this is false, this is misinformation. The problem, Gopika Babu, today is that even if the cops do come out with a press conference where they clarify all the numbers and give out information, will you be willing to agree to what they're saying? Will you buy it on face value? That's the problem. What can the cops do at this point in time to regain the trust of the people? Gopika Babu first, and then I'll come back to Sanjay Sai.
Criminal elements present in the in the protest, at the protest site, trying to disrupt or create violence, then they should be in a position to come out with clear data and to not just give the numbers, but to give the numbers of these people who are involved, which they are not doing, which then leaves a very huge gray area where they can then file FIRs without any name, and then tomorrow include student leaders or activists in them, and then take punitive measures or vindicative action. And one other thing that the police has lost all its credibility is with the amount of visuals and footage coming of them molesting women, harassing women protesters, and the Delhi police is out there defending all of that action and not taking any sort of measures against policemen who are identified in the cameras, whose names we know. They're not ready to take any sort of action.
Okay, but the police have come out with the numbers, and they do have the data on the people, the criminals and the history sheeters. The cops do have that data. You're saying that you want that data to become public.
Exactly. Give us the names.
Okay.
If you have all of this data, if you have camera persons at every 10 meters of the protest site, you have FITs, facial recognition systems at place, every corner of Jantar Mantar, CCTV. If with all of the surveillance, you're not able to give us names of these criminal elements, then it leaves a huge gray area. And which is why there has been trust eroded from the political, from the police, and which is why we're demanding credibility as well as accountability.
Okay, so then let me bring back Sanjay Sanjay Sahai before I get in Rashmi once again. Mr. Sahai, is that legally doable for the cops? Should they just release?
What the protesters will buy and what the protesters will not buy is not the issue. What are the facts? And how is police proceeding with the investigation is extremely important. So these are the number of cases, these are the people accused, this is the evidence available. If police can give generic data in the public domain, they can also give very detailed data. When they know their history sheeters, there is no hide and seek about these history sheeters or any sorts of criminals. What is also adding up to the whole story, that in variety of ways and variety of means, we are getting camouflaged information, or information might be of a diversionary type. All that has added not only to the tragedy of the protester, but the whole generation is losing faith. One more thing I'll add to Gopika. Now, these cases which are being registered now is only one part of the story. Now they will pick up cases which were registered 5 years back, 6 years back, 7 years back, and they will be picked up. So we know how to make law dormant. We know how to make law very, very active, and the investigation very, very active, and take a whole circle and come to that particular person or whosoever. So we intend to use that piece of law. That is primarily, it is happening with bulldozers also. You have n number of unauthorized locations all across the country, but it finally falls on the people who are caught in some other criminal case. So I think the Delhi police, leave aside the political establishment, Delhi police, I think they should come clean. And these are the protesters out of a number of IPS officers and state service police officers and sub-inspectors. They will also be recruited out of these people only. So I think it is our bounden duty to show what transparency is, what finality is. You see any protest across the globe, either the head of the police or the mayor of the city, they come out every day and they give their version of the whole thing, which is treated as fact. And if somebody disagrees, then there will be ways and means. But creating a smoke screen and allowing the people to battle, you are saying some person got a relief from the court there. Why should that fellow go to the court in the first place? Do you think that these people have no other work but to run behind courts and spend money by very scarce resources. And government has all the resources and they are not ready to clear the smoke screen.
Okay, Rashmi, I want to bring you into the conversation as well. Um, do you believe that the Delhi government should then come clean with the numbers? A, and secondly, I genuinely want to understand from you, because you said you are Gen Z as well and you understand the world of social media a little bit better maybe than Mr. Sahai. No offense to him at all with his experience, but social media is something that's a completely different game altogether. But Rashmi, is there going to be enough trust then with the statements that the cops make, or will that also be countered once again? And people will then put out reels and memes saying that this is false and this is false and this is not how it happened. When we talk about building trust or regaining trust, how can that work for the Delhi police or police in general, which is currently struggling with that concept?
Well, firstly, I think respect to Mr. Sanjay Sahai and everything that he said, because I think he definitely has a lot of experience and exposure to how things are done in India and around the world. At the same time, I'd like to make one point and start off by saying that virality on Instagram or online is not a mandate. It's just an algorithm doing its job. Today, a whistle is being blown upon most of the protesters who showed up. There was one woman who was widely abusing the prime minister and claimed to be a NEET student, but it turns out that she's just a dancer, for hire. On stages in different parts of Bharat where questionable sort of setups are put up. I don't even want to get into the details because it's I don't think it's very respectable to be talking about these things. We had a certain Poonam Pandey show up at this protest, whereas the industry that she represents, the adult industry, is one of the large, industries that need reform vis-a-vis addiction that the young people are facing. So I don't think a lot of the people who showed up there are in any way representative of Generation Z or the genuine sort of the genuine concerns of NEET students and their parents. Secondly, when we talk about punitive action, why are we, not talking about what the police did in Kerala, what the police did in Punjab against student protesters? Why is so much focus only being put upon NDA ruled states? I think that is also a fair question that needs to be asked because nobody is critically questioning why the Kerala CM ordered, water cannons on protesters for the same protest in Kerala, and the next day he managed to come sit in front of the Prime Minister's house seeking justice for these NEET students. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy also that's very prevalent within this protest. I think it's not as straightforward, but definitely the police needs to do a better job in terms of maintaining transparency because they do have a lot of power, and with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. End of the day, the protesters, even criminals who are involved within the protest do not have any kind of power. They do not hold any kind of power. So I think when it comes to accountability, those in power have a greater responsibility and sense towards it. But I think we as citizens, journalists, and people who want what's best for society, we also need to ask these questions uniformly across the board. We also need to ask why certain protesters were there in the first place and that they do not represent the genuine asks and needs of the NEET students. And also the very fact that a lot of the people are trying to revive their political careers out of the pyres of over the pyres of NEET students who lost their lives unfortunately as a result of the paper leak. I don't think a bunch of students who are sensitively, genuinely invested in the welfare of NEET students and feel for the families who lost their young kids would party in such a explicit manner soon after the protest ends. And I definitely feel like there are vested interests who are involved here and a lot of layered agendas which are trying to weaponize genuine concerns. The concerns are genuine, and I do not want a lot of this gerrymandering to take away from the genuineness of those concerns. But
yes, but
I would like to
unfortunately,
put-
Rashmi, that is what's happened, right? The genuine concerns and some of the hypocrisies that you've pointed out. The moment someone raises that question, then you are labeled that you are pro-government. The media, we saw what happened to the media. Anyone who was trying to even ask a question was being labeled Godi media. And whatever, and we are all asked to introspect and told that you must now look at what you've done, you've lost all credibility, there is no trust in you. But then the moment you say, okay, what about some of the paper leaks that have happened in other states? Are you going to gather and are we all going to go protest there as well, asking for those resignations? No answer. Are we going to ask the non-NDA ruled states about their FIRs? No answer. Gopika Babu, I leave that to you. We saw Ashutosh Ranka of the CJP put out this message on 28th July. If anything happens to Aishi Ghosh, the government will see a protest like never before. Stop harassing our team. Honor your words. We are now witnessing that a protest once again is being threatened over Aishi Ghosh, who already has the support of the courts. What about some of the points that Rashmi Samant has raised there? What about the other states, non-NDA ruled states? Are you asking those governments to drop the FIRs? What about the ministers across India, state education ministers under whom paper leaks have happened in state level exams? Are you all demanding those resignations?
I think what I would call this is whataboutery, because I come from Students Federation of India and we were the ones who got FIR in Kerala, and we are the ones protesting on the streets in Kerala, and we have been doing it in every state where there have been paper leaks. So I don't think the question should be pointed on us that where were you here? We were there everywhere. From Assam to West Bengal to Punjab to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, Kerala.
That's not the question I asked. I didn't ask you whether you were there or not. I didn't ask whether you were protesting there or not. I'm talking about the demand for resignations. Was that made? Should that not be the reason why you should be coming back on the streets rather than over FIRs and cases that are being handled by the courts? That was my question. I know I'm not going to get a straight answer to that. On that note, I thank all of our guests for joining us. I've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us on NewsX. With that, a very quick break.